Hi everybody, welcome back. Tony again here with Shinsho Yoga, and here is my final video regarding this series here I did on yoga teachers becoming a yoga teacher. So, I talked about deepening the practice before you get involved, going into yoga teacher training, what you do after yoga teacher training, when you actually graduated and decide to become a teacher. And last and not least at all is the business of yoga. And this is going to be maybe a bit of a longer video. I don't know. There's a lot to say on this. And it's probably going to be the most cynical of the series. The other ones maybe you've watched and were very excited and heard lots of things that made you want to be a yoga teacher. And when I go over this, you may go, I don't want to be a yoga teacher. I'm going to shoot it straight with you. The business is exactly that. It's a business. It's there to make money. As much as you want to feel whatever teacher you have or who they are is, they're, maybe the guru you think they are, if this is their living that they're doing this for, they've got to make money at it, right? And making money at this is a challenge. This is not on a daily basis a lucrative profession at all. You have a great disparity between those yoga studios and teachers who make a good amount of money and those who make very little. Most make very little. It's a hard business to make a living at. I can tell you that right now. You are going to scrape and scrimp and rob Peter to pay Paul, as they would say, to get by. Before I get into the pitfalls of the business, let me give you a little bit on what you can expect to get paid as a teacher. So you've decided to be a teacher now, and how do you expect to be paid? Well, it's going to depend on the place you're teaching. Anywhere you work, generally you're going to be an independent contractor, right? Generally you are not an employee. That is how the business works. Some places might be, if you get a job at like a college, they might put you on as like a part-time employee status, or maybe a gym or something like that as a part-time employee, like if it's a chain gym, but generally you are an independent contractor. And you are either going to be paid by the class at a set fee, or you are going to be paid on a split depending on the amount of people that come into the class. If you are paid in a class at a set fee, then generally the fee is going to range from $25 to $40 a class, depending on the place. Gyms usually pay on the lower end. They're usually around $25 a class. You work in the better studios, you're going to get paid $35 to $40 a class. Other places you work as a split, right? And that means that whatever the studio brings in for your class, it's split. Most places are going to be a 50-50. So if you have 10 students that day and they all paid $15 to come into that class, that's $150. You split that with the studio, it's $75, right? That's what you get paid for that class that day. If you come into that class that day and you have 2 students, and that's $15 a student, or better yet, let's say it's a class card. And the class card, they had a special. Let's say make it a special. It was $10, right? You get 2 students and they're $10 each, that's $20. You just made $10 for the day. That's how it works, right? Split or a set amount depending on where it is. Some places you work a donation base, right? Depending on how that is, right? Maybe the studios I had mentioned in the prior video about community classes, they run a donation base for their yoga teacher trainees. Generally, the studio just gives that to the teacher because it's not a lucrative class for them. They just do it as an offering. You come in and you'll get it, or maybe they work it as a split with you. But generally, you're either a set fee or you're going to work on a split basis. And again, that depends on the place you are teaching. As for the different places you're teaching and what it's like to work for them, it all depends on what it is. You're going to have lots of different places. I have teach for yoga studios. I teach at separate places like martial arts dojos. I've taught on the beach. I teach on the beach. I teach at colleges. I've taught at corporate gyms that they had set up to run yoga there. I've taught at regular gyms. I've taught at Pilates studios. It's going to be different everywhere you go, and you have to be able to work that out. So you have to have a head for business to do this, right? Because going into this without it, it's just going to be a mess. Some of the places I work at, I rent the space from them. Right? So some of the places that I do it that are not yoga studios, they have time, like if you go to sometimes martial arts studios, especially like that, they'll want to put on a yoga class. And what you'll do is you'll rent the space from them for that time, and you work out with the owner of the space what that'll be, how much you pay them for the time. Sometimes it's a set fee. Sometimes you can work with them a split too and say, hey, I'll give you part of what I make. That's generally work out better if you don't know how many people are going to come into your class on a weekly basis. On those types of classes, don't expect to get feed from the place, though. Generally, you got to bring in your own students. They're not going to so much feed you. You might get lucky and might have a place that's like, yeah, all our people here want yoga. We love to have a person come in and do this. It'll be separate from our own membership of what it is at wherever place we are, right? Non-yoga studio, of course. And then you work from there with that, where you pay them, the students pay you, and then you'll pay them the portion or the fee it is for the time. And that way, that's your own class. Working in a studio, though, is a different story, right? In that generally, it's going to be either a set fee or a split, but you're working for someone else now. And this is one of the big challenges that you're going to run into in this business. And I don't know how to put this delicately. Most people that I run into in this business have no business experience or no business acumen whatsoever. They are someone who got an idea, right? They went to yoga teacher training. They were hanging around with their friends or whatever, and they said, wouldn't it be great if we opened a yoga studio? And they said, yeah. They don't do the numbers. They don't do the math. They don't have any understanding on how to lead or direct people. And they open a space like they're opening a clubhouse. One of the things, if you've thought about opening your own space, you have to keep in mind is you have to pay that nut every month of your rent and your utilities before you pay yourself and before you pay any other teacher. So if you're opening a space, you have to have the clientele to support it. That means you have to have a following to bring in there. If you leave yoga teacher training and then say, I'm going to open my own studio and just think people are going to come to you, good luck. You have to have that following before you open the space. And you have to understand how much money you have to make every month, every week, every day to keep those doors open. Otherwise, you're just going to lose money. And I've seen place after place close, especially during COVID, right? Because again, it's generally not a big dollar business. Yeah, the business of yoga in America is $1 billion industry, but that's carved out into hundreds of thousands of little places. So the pie is cut up so much, especially in the area I'm in. There's no lack of yoga in this area. It's a glut of studios. Everywhere you go, there's one. You know, one end of the town, the next end of the town, you can throw a rock and hit them. It becomes harder and harder to do it, right? To make a living at it, doing it. It's going to require dedication. It's going to require a lot of sacrifice. You're going to have to be good with numbers on your own end you're going to have to live relatively frugally. Because again, the people that open these studios, a lot of them that you work for, they're not necessarily business people or good business people. A lot of them I found spouses make the money, and this is their side project. So the things they do, they don't think about what's best for the business. They think about, oh, it would be fun to do this. I always wanted to have that. Yeah, but does that bring in any students? Let's do wine and yoga. Why? What type of studio are you trying to present here? So the business of this can be very challenging. And it may be disheartening at times if this is what you've chosen to do for a living. Now, if you've decided to do this, right, just you want to teach, you've graduated teacher training and you just want to teach one class a week at one place, then you don't have to worry about all of that, right? But make sure that when you teach that class that you do take it seriously, because you ruin it for everyone else if you don't. You know, a lot of the studios I've taught at, I've had a lot of people that just, they just teach yoga a couple classes a week, and it's a free-for-all, right? I've come into studios, they're filthy, because the teacher before, I forgot to put this, sometimes I would get notes from teachers. Oh, Tony, I'm sorry, I forgot to put this away. So now I come into my class and I have to try to worry about making my money and doing what I need to do, and I have to clean up your mess to start with. You have to take it seriously, whether or not you are doing this as a full-time job or this is just one class a week that you teach, because you have other people that you're affecting. Not only the other teachers that do this, but you're also the students. And that's most important about this. If this is just fun for you to do on the weekend, how much are you really offering your students? If this is what you do, if this is what I do, 24/7, yoga nonstop, everything in my life is based around this. Everything. That's one of the reasons my practice suffers, because once I'm done teaching, the last thing I want to do is come home and do yoga, but I have to push myself to do it, to stay on top of the practice. Understand that this is a business. If you are coming into it, right, you have deepened your practice, my first video. You have gone through yoga teacher training, my second video. The third video, you've graduated, and now you're not choosing just to leave it there it is and go back to your practice. You're choosing to teach. You have entered a business, and you have to have business acumen. If you don't, you screw it up for everybody else. And coming from someone who deals with that all the time, that's not yogic. That is not in the line of yoga. You can't dump your problems on everyone else. So if you are doing it for a teaching, whether it's one class a week or 10 classes a week or 5 classes a week, whatever you're doing, make sure you understand that you're doing what's best in the vein of the business and best for the students there. So when you deal with certain people in the process of this, you're going to run into people who aren't. And my best suggestion is to separate yourself from them. I recently had an opportunity to teach at a local place, a Pilates studio, and unfortunately in dealing with the person that was there, I got a really bad vibe off them. I didn't believe their intention was proper, and it wasn't in my best interest to be there. And I had to turn down the work because it wouldn't have been a good scenario. And in this business, it's not really, you got a whole lot of opportunities, especially during COVID, for work. But you have to have your integrity and your principles in what you're doing. And in doing this, you're going to run into a lot of people who don't have any business experience, who are going to be, they're going to text you at 10 o'clock at night and go, what do you think about running a class? Do I know you? 10 o'clock at night, you're texting me, asking me about what my ideas for this and that are? That's not professional. Call me. I have some people that I deal with that don't ever want a phone call. It's just texts. And I don't like that for business. I like to do face-to-face, or at least a phone call. My buddy, hey, you want to go surfing? That's good for a text. Hey, you want to go grab a burrito? But business-wise, way too much can be misunderstood. You really have to see people's facial expressions. So I will go by a studio if I'm looking to meet somebody to talk to them about teaching there. Introduce myself. Understand that generally in this business, you're going to get your work on word of mouth. Someone's going to recommend you. So you want to keep your reputation good. You want to keep it clean, right? So you want to stay professional in all that you do. Because once you get a bad reputation, you're just not going to beat it. You can't get rid of it. right? Much like I said about playing favorites. You can't get rid of it. So be professional in what you do, no matter what classes, if you're teaching 1 or teaching 10, or how many of you, it's only, you only have a handful of students in one class and that's it. It doesn't matter. Be professional. But understand, a lot of these people in this industry are just people who had an idea to open a yoga studio, or who have no concept, especially when you deal with gyms and things like that. They don't have a concept of what yoga is. They think it's an exercise. They think it's some stretch. They don't know what it is. And you're going to be the one that's going to have to set them straight on that, because they're going to have an idea in their head, and you're going to have to set their expectations on how you're going to teach. If you're going to be successful in this, you have to be professional, and you have to have some business acumen. And you're also going to have to be able to do numbers. Again, you're an independent contractor, right? Very few times are you going to be an employee, right? And with that are going to come, you're going to have to do your taxes, and you're going to have to keep track of your money. Some places you teach, you're going to get paid in cash. Some you're going to get a check. Some places may pay you online, right? You have to keep track of all of this. I've got a spreadsheet that's, multiple tabs, multiple columns, keeping track of where I teach, how I got paid, what the mileage is there, date, the whole 9 yards, because when you do your taxes, you can't just do a 1040EZ form. You're going to have to do it as a sole proprietorship, right? And if you work full time, right, and this is you're getting paid on the side, you're going to get a 1099. So you work full time, whatever your regular job is, and you're teaching yoga on the side, 1 class a week or whatever it is. You're still going to get a 1099 from that place you work at, saying what you mean. You're going to have to claim it on your taxes, and you're going to have to pay tax on that money. Yes, you're going to have to pay tax on that money. So you're going to need an understanding of business and understanding of what you can and can't write off. I use TurboTax. I use their sole proprietorship program. It's about $120 for the program, but it works well, and it helps me to keep me from getting in trouble with the IRS. But you're going to have to log all this stuff. You're going to have to write it all down. There's no one taking Social Security out. There's no one taking your state tax or your federal tax out. You have to do all that. And some of these studios may forget to send you a 1099. How about that? You have to make over $600, I believe, in a year to get a 1099. But some places I've been at, I know I've made more than that, and they don't send me a 1099. That doesn't mean it's still not reportable, especially if they're paying you by check, because that's traceable. So you have to have business experience to be able to do this as a living, right? And understand that a lot of people that you deal with in this business don't. And as you go higher up in it, companies, the bigger companies, they're just there to make money. Yoga Alliance, all Yoga Alliance has done for me is offer me a discount on Jade mats. That's pretty good. And they offer you a discount on insurance. You're going to have to carry your own personal insurance for yoga in case a student gets hurt. In case they sue you, you have to carry that liability insurance. The one that Yoga Alliance offers through Alliant is about $120 a year, and I think you get about $1 million worth of insurance. You have to have that. If you're offering your own classes at your own place, you're going to have a release form, or on the sign-in sheet have a disclaimer on the bottom at the minimum, because you have to have something to protect yourself in case someone gets hurt, and you're going to have to keep records of all of that. So if you decide to be a yoga teacher, right, and that's what you want to do, you have to be a business person to do it and survive. And understand that a lot of the people you deal with are not going to be business people, and they will frustrate you to no end. And you're going to do a lot of jumping through hoops to keep it going. Even if you only teach once a week, 1 class, again, you're not in general an employee. So you're going to have to be able to keep track of those things, because you will have to report it. And if you decide to do your own class somewhere, even if it's only 1, you're going to need those disclaimers, right? And you're still going to have to understand how to pay those taxes on that. So going into yoga teacher training and becoming a yoga teacher and actually going into the business of yoga are big leaps, right, of each one. Right? How you decide what you want to do with it is up to you. I would say, what is your intention? If you're doing this because all your friends are yoga teachers, or you and your friends do yoga and it would be cool to tell them, look, I went to teacher training, I'm going to teach a class, that's not the proper intention. If you're doing it because you believe in the practice and feel that you can make a difference in people's lives and help make their lives better and help them become the best version of themselves or something along those lines, then yeah, that's good. That's great. But if it's anything but to serve the student, I don't recommend getting involved in it. Take the teacher training and just go back to your practice. But if you're going to become a teacher, you have to be ready to serve and understand business, at least in America, especially here in the Northeast. So that's a lot of info. Whew. I probably overwhelmed you. But if I did, breathe, follow your breath. As the thoughts arise, you'll acknowledge them, let them pass by, and return to the breath. Over and over. Thanks for sticking with me. If you have questions, comments, feel free to leave them. I will do my best to answer. Namaste.